Hello, and welcome to Split Your Head. I'm your host, Bob, and today's esteemed guest is Ryan Verrill, the host of the podcast Disconnected, which I consider to be one of the highest authorities on physical media. I'd be surprised if you somehow sidestepped Disconnected and landed on my quaint little podcast. But if that's the case, then you're in for a treat, as Verrill has interviewed everyone from Oscar winning directors to boutique Blu ray companies, all with a passion and knowledge for film that is both refreshing and comforting. With his company, Someone's Favorite Productions, he's produced content for Blu-rays, a monthly-ish magazine in the Physical Media Advocate, the Shelf Shock Rewind Awards Show, and probably a dozen more projects I'm not even aware of, as I'm certain this guy never sleeps. Well, I'm soon about to confirm that because I'm lucky enough to have him on so I can ask him. Ryan, when do you sleep?
I sleep. My wife laughs at me because I fall asleep with my laptop on my desk, on my chest, probably 4 nights a week. Not even kidding.
And so that means when you wake up, you're just like back to it.
I literally, people will laugh because I will respond to an email at like 2:30 in the morning, and it's because I woke myself up and just kind of kept typing.
Oh my God. That is okay. That's like a level of being driven that is terrifying and inspiring at the same time. Have you always been this way?
No, not really. My parents growing up tried to instill a very like blue collar work ethic feeling in me, and I certainly pursued that for quite some time. But this is the very first time in my life that I've been doing something that I genuinely feel proud of, but more importantly,
Hmm.
which is for a mental health thing, like I
Yeah.
actually enjoy doing and look forward to doing. And so because of that, there's some days I just like at my core don't even want to stop. I get in such a like creative driven point that it's like I know I have to work at my day job the next morning, but I don't want to put stuff down. So I'd rather be tired of my day job and do good work at the moment what I'm doing.
Yeah. So it is like 100% your creative outlet in a way.
Yeah.
Like
Oh yeah.
like the faucet on full blast is you up till 4 a.m. editing or sending emails.
Yeah.
That's
Certainly can be.
amazing. Yeah,
Yeah.
I mean, I can kind of relate that I've always had like music on the go or other projects. And so this right now, I'm like trying to get it to that point where it is the creative outlet satisfies that part of you. I'm not quite there yet, but you have an empire of so many different things and it's just grown and grown. So
Yes.
it makes sense that it would be such a satisfying endeavor for you. You mentioned that it was like your parents that instilled this blue collar work ethic in you, which really, this is like the initial question I want to ask you, which was like, in terms of the disconnected being about collecting Blu-rays. As a kid, were you a big collector?
I was one of those kids that likely, if it was 2015 and I was doing what I was doing in the 90s, I would have been most likely diagnosed with autism. I uh,
Oh,
I, I collected rubber bands that the mailman left every day. I had a rock collection. I had
okay.
like 14,000 pounds of Legos. I had multiple things that I would say were definitely like borderline addictive collecting habits at the time, and yeah, certain things like a rubber band collection can be a little weird, but it was it was one of those things that just kept me
Yeah.
going every day. Yeah,
Well, I was kind of expecting you to say CDs and VHS or comics or
I did that
something. So,
eventually, but
okay,
at
okay.
5 years old, I'm not going to be super into those.
Oh, okay. I see what you're saying. So you
Yeah,
you were really going like far, far back to the start of like
yeah,
collecting was sort of always a part of your identity in a way,
yep,
Whereas I think for most people, you have to be introduced to the object and then you
right.
learn how to collect it. You were sort of like, I'm going to collect. What am I going to collect?
Yeah, and not to get, I don't know, melancholy from the beginning, but my home life
Hmm.
was a little unstable and not super great. And
Okay.
so being able to collect, I think psychologically was probably one of the few things I could control and was actually something that I knew would be there for me rather than, parents and other family members that wouldn't be there for me. So as
Okay.
as sad as that's going to sound, yes, a rubber band collection felt like a safe space because it would always be there.
Yeah. No, it doesn't sound that sad because like look at where you are today.
Right.
And I mean, it's up to you however much you want to say about that. But you did make me think of like one of my good friends goes to the movie theaters constantly. Like, I think he goes at least like 2 or 3 times a week. And
Yep.
from what I understand, it's because he grew up going with family members who he now is like distant from. So for him, it's like I grew up doing this as like this ritual or tradition, and now I think he finds a lot of comfort in doing that. So I mean, I don't know if those are like super, analogous, if that's the right word,
Yeah.
but it does sound kind of similar in terms of like a coping method, and it sounds kind of a beautiful thing that you've managed to then turn it into this empire,
Yeah.
based on that. So it almost makes me think of like Malcolm Gladwell or something would write about that in one of his books.
Yeah, I could see that in a way. Sure. Yeah, there's quite a few parallels there. And honestly, even going that far back, music and movies were there. I mean, one of my first experiences ever. I remember going to see Beauty and the Beast. Literally, is my first theatrical experience, and I can pretty much like describe almost in a artistic way how the entire night was, what it felt like outside, how the air smelled, because it felt genuinely that important to me. And looking back, it was by far one of the most like pivotal moments for me, just because I wanted to be able to feel that experience often. And I mean, music was
Mm.
huge. I remember, I think I was 4 years old, maybe 3.5 years old. My dad took me to my first concert ever, and looking back now, I still can't believe I was able to do this. But the Great Western Forum in LA, turns out that I was present for Lenny Kravitz opening for Tom Petty and the Heartbreakers.
Oh, hell yeah. That's
And
awesome.
I was very young, obviously 3 or 4, but I genuinely still remember one specific thing happening. And that's Tom Petty on stage opening what looked like a pirate's treasure chest, and light beaming out of this thing like it was the Cave of Wonders, and him pulling out his iconic hat and putting it on and starting the show. And I
Wow.
think I fell asleep after that, but the showmanship and like the ritual experience of here we go, we're getting into this thing, I will literally never forget that.
Wow, that's amazing. I
Yeah.
think my first concert that my parents took me to, the two things I remembered from it, other than it being incredible, it was Sting, and
Nice.
was like watching the guitar move with it, like he was playing the guitar and he didn't clip the strings on the end, so they just like flayed around. And in the light, I was just like, "What is going on?" And then the other thing was leaving the venue, because it was like an outdoor venue at Canada's Wonderland, which is like a theme park in Ontario. And I was so small and everyone was so big and it was like pitch black out. And I'm just like crawling around and it reeked of like cigarettes and weed and
Right.
stuff. It was just like such an intense
Ah,
experience.
memories.
Ah, yes. So music was a big thing for you. Film was a big thing for you. How old were you when you saw Beauty and the Beast?
Oh gosh, I was probably five-ish, 5 or 6, somewhere around there. It had to have
Okay.
been a part of his first theatrical run. And actually, now that I'm thinking about it, it was before my first sibling was born, so it had to have been either, I think it was late when I was 5, probably like about to be 6.
Okay. Okay.
Yeah.
It makes me think of the most impactful theater experience that I had when I was a kid. And did you get to see Jurassic Park in the theaters?
I did not get to see it in the theaters, but it at home quickly became it's
Oh
probably still
no.
my most watched film ever.
Interesting. Okay.
My parents were very, very strict about what I watched for
Oh, okay.
years. So anything that was like that was a problem. And I first saw, I think shortly after
Really?
that, it was on TV, and they showed it's not even that cut down, because Jurassic Park at its whole is not
It's like PG,
super
isn't it?
bad. Yeah,
No.
I think they took off like the toilet eating scene,
Oh, that
and one or
sucks.
two other things. But other than that, yeah, it's pretty intact. And so I saw that on TV, and then like very quickly after that, they were like, "Well, you've basically seen it. Let's just watch the VHS." And then I lived through
Okay.
that thing pretty much daily.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Well, I saw it 5 times in theaters.
Nice.
And it became this thing. I mean, my parents we're completely opposite end of the spectrum. I think you mentioned to me when we were talking in messages like you came from a religious background,
Oh,
and
yes.
my parents are like very stereotypical like British liberal people, and they like showed me Rocky Horror Picture Show when I was like 8 years old. All these movies that I was like not ready for and I didn't
Right.
understand, and they traumatized me. But this is not my therapy session, so but Jurassic Park was one that, like, we'd have relatives come visit. We're in that summer when it was out, and we'd
Right.
all like get in the Previa van and just like go out and see it for like the fourth time or something. And every time it was just such a riveting experience. And I remember just like coming home and riding my bike up and down the street, being like, "Oh my god, the T Rex is after me." So
Yeah.
I think for me that, like, and how in terms of like how collecting kind of instilled something for you. I think seeing Jurassic Park that many times and getting so engaged with it instilled for me like I have a tendency that if I get into something, I don't know how to like do it um mildly. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? Like, well, I have to see 5 times. You know what I mean? So who knows if that's like an on the spectrum thing or not? But
I mean,
yeah.
in a way, like you just mentioned, it is a spectrum. We're probably all on it at some point in that spectrum, and I completely agree with you. I mean, you mentioned collecting CDs. I was one of those people with like 3 CD binders in my car in 2003, driving around, and somebody says they want to listen to something. I'm like, hold on, let me find out which one it's in. These are alphabetized. I have
Oh,
every CD
amazing.
this band's ever put out, and oh look, these 4 are signed. Whatever.
Yeah,
I had all
that's
kinds of
amazing.
stuff.
Well, I mean, not to. I feel like this is turning into a one-upper, so I'll leave it at this. But I didn't get an iPod until I want to say 2010 or 2011. And I remember I used to go to work with like I just grabbed like 5 CDs in cases and just throw them in my backpack. And I
Yep.
would get them like my CD ready in my Discman to go home from work. And my coworkers would be like, "You're such a fucking idiot. Like, why are you doing that?" And it took me a while to finally be like, maybe I am an idiot. But you know what's sad about that is that I would say maybe 5 years after that, I just stopped collecting physical music, and now I just buy everything digitally.
Yeah.
So it is kind of sad that that's happened, and I'm kind of glad then that I've managed to hold on to physical film collecting. Like, I don't foresee that ever going away. And
Right.
I think that really comes down to, I mean, this is such a tangent, but the quality of a Blu-ray versus like the quality of like you can get high quality
Yep.
MP3s, no problem, that matches a CD in a Discman. So,
Yeah,
not really comparable.
don't tell vinyl lovers that, but yes, you
Yeah.
absolutely can get incredibly close to the highest quality possible digitally.
Right, right. Do you collect vinyl?
I I'd like to say no, but I'm literally looking at a stack of like 150 records right now.
Oh
So
shit. Okay.
I have some. Most of them I probably don't need anymore. I literally don't even have a working player anymore. A
Mm.
handful of years ago, it just completely shit the bed on me, and I really wish I did, but I don't even have room for it. It's one of those things like playing a Blu-ray is safe and contained and okay. Having a record player in a house with 2 kids that are special needs, there's a lot of
Mm.
things that can go wrong there, and so I haven't replaced it. Like I don't even have a working sound system because to do that right, there's too many things like components around the room that can be damaged. So with 2 kids, I've just said, let's wait until the kids are a little older and they're not wanting to play, football in the living room.
Yeah,
So,
that's not going to work
yeah,
with dad's record on.
not at all, not at all.
Yeah, yeah. But I think maybe then music for you has become less of a communal experience. Is that right?
It has and it hasn't. It's really odd because I don't have the time for it that I used to, which I used to, every single Tuesday I worked for the railroad for years, and so I'd get off at like 6 a.m. and literally wait. This is going to date me entirely, but like wait in the Circuit City parking lot for it to open, to go into Circuit City, to go into Best Buy, to go into, at the time I think it was the Family Christian Bookstore, and like 2 others, because my workplace was an hour away from my home. So I would work a full night shift and have an hour drive home. But to stay awake, I would stop like every 20 minutes at a music store and try to find something that came out that day and waste my life away pretty much just spending money that I was making at the time. But it was obviously a big thing then, and I don't do the same necessarily to purchase, but when I get a chance to go to a show is when I feel that commune. And literally, God,
Totally.
not even 2 weeks ago, I was just at another show, and my wife and I went, and I like borderline just felt transcendent at a couple times. I'm like,
Oh,
man,
that's
this
amazing.
I miss this. I miss this
Yeah.
feeling of like this is a band that I listen to on a nearly daily basis, and I'm 8 feet away from them and old and my knees hurt. However, I feel like I'm floating above this crowd, watching everything from afar and living
Yeah.
vicariously through the spirits around us in a weird
Right.
way. Cause it's just, I don't know. It's so interesting to come from like a religious and worship experience that everybody there always says, "Ooh, God was speaking through me through this music." So I raise my hands. I mean, not really. You just discovered live music. You just discovered the
Yes.
feeling of being around people that are passionate about the same thing. And now I'm lost in this guy playing a keyboard solo, and I love the same thing. And I'm
Yeah.
like borderline tears because it's just so incredible to feel that.
Yeah. Who was it?
Uh, this is gonna be so funny. A really great like punk rock band named Foxy Shazam. The lead singer is Eric Nolly.
Okay.
He did that song Downtown with Macklemore like 8 years ago,
Okay.
and he
Huh.
got kind of big from that. But they started as like this post-hardcore band in 2003, 2004ish, and they're incredible. I mean, they do some wild theatrics. The keyboard solo, the guy stands on his keyboard. He throws his
Oh,
keyboard
wow.
into the crowd and then has people lift him with his legs up over his head in the crowd and plays a keyboard solo. The
Wow.
lead singer dances with the mic stand. He lights cigarettes and then eats them on stage. It's just this weird, like incredible punk rock,
Okay.
just fuck you aesthetic that I
Yeah.
love.
Was the okay? So the post-hardcore version of the band was it also called Foxy Shazam?
Yeah, they started as for anybody that would recognize the sound from the name, they used to sound very much like the Blood Brothers kind of, and they've moved away from that and have gone towards a more borderline, like I can almost get like a Queen feeling from what they do. But what's crazy
Wow.
is about
Okay.
half of their newish records, like 5 out of 10 of the songs usually are kind of a good mix of the two. So you get like glam Blood Brothers, which is to me like speaking to everything I want to feel in music.
Ryan, whew. You're touching a sweet spot. They were Blood Brothers was one of my favorite bands
Yeah.
when I was a kid, and they obviously are. I don't know if you've heard they reunited. They
Hmm.
played some shows in the States. They haven't come up to Canada, but one of my
Right.
good friends, he went to the show in Chicago and bought a hat for me. So I've just been wearing it around town. I love the Blood Brothers, and it does make a lot of sense when you say this band was basically like a glammier version of them because
Yeah.
I felt like their trajectory was going further glam anyways,
Yep.
uh, which was okay. I'm
Yeah.
for me, I like Burn Piano and Burn is like one of the all time like top 10 album in my top 10
Yeah.
albums of all time. Yeah. I don't know if you're on the same, but are you more of this adultery is ripe guy or crimes or
No, I'm pretty much in line with you.
okay.
Some of that stuff was so important. And I mean the 2000s, the way that I leaned to started to get like super deep into the metalcore scene, and so
Mm,
the heavier, more brash Blood Brothers was just a comfort in a way. And
yeah.
that the crazy frenetic vocals is it's just home. It feels like a moment of just teenage angst that I've felt to my core. Absolutely.
Right. Yeah. I think also what really resonated with me was like at the time growing up just feeling really alienated by very like hyper masculine
Mm,
guys. And the Blood
same.
Brothers had a very like kind of like flamboyant
Yep.
sassiness, but they were still like super violent with their music.
Yeah.
And I remember just feeling like, oh, thank God, like someone's coming in that doesn't make you feel they're not like a total bro. You know what I
Yep.
mean? It was so refreshing to hear that. And it's, I mean, since then I've gotten more into like tough guy hardcore, you know, or whatever you want to call it. But
We do not sound tough talking about it like that.
no, not at all. But I mean, it's really like if I say that, you know exactly what I'm talking
Yep.
about, right? And back when the Blood Brothers were around, and I was super into them, my band would play, or I go to these shows where these tough guy hardcore bands would play, and that they would go on, and the pit would start, and they would be so violent that they would, like, my friends trying to mosh would get beaten up, and
Yep.
then I was just talking about this with like my best friend who I was in a band with in high school. We were talking about the time we played with this band, tough guy hardcore band, and as they were leaving the show, they drove in their mom's van and they yelled, I don't know. I don't want to say the slur, but they're like punks not dead, you f words
Right.
to all of my friends and I, and it was just like, what is this energy? Like, give me the Blood Brothers. I want that
Yeah.
violence, but I don't want that fucking homophobia and like sexism.
I went to a show one time in this is gonna sound so like Alabama, and it's the exact opposite, in an outdoor RV park in the desert in California.
That sounds
And
amazing.
one of my favorite bands was opening, one of my favorite bands was closing, so I was stoked on it. The whole night was gonna be great. And then right in the middle was Throwdown. And I had
Okay.
never seen Throwdown, but
Yeah.
the first show was great. Like, the lead singer was amazing. I got to sing on one of the songs. Like, he threw me the mic. It was an incredible experience. And then Throwdown came on, and I was just like, "Ooh, this doesn't
Uh,
feel good at all." And then the
yeah.
last
Yeah.
band it played, and "This is amazing." Yeah.
Who are the first and last bands?
Maylene and the Sons of Disaster, a
Hmm.
hardcore
Okay.
band that's very like southern rock hardcore.
Okay.
Crazy story for them. Their lead singer got into a quad accident. He came out and hit a
Hmm.
sign going incredibly fast, like almost cut his head off. Basically, had this crazy accident, but he's back singing and making movies and stuff now. But the big one for me, the last band that played was Zayo, and
Oh, nice.
Zayo's fundamental for me. They were one of the most important
Sure.
bands I had growing up, and yeah, that was a huge moment for me.
Yeah, and they've reunited recently.
Yeah, technically they've never broken up. They've never
Oh,
stopped. They
okay.
they just keep playing shows, but not nearly as often as they used to.
That's fair. Yeah, it
Yeah.
gets harder as you get older. Also, too, though, which I think may be why they might have resonated more with you. If I'm not mistaken, they started out as a Christian band and then they eventually broke off from that, right? Like,
Same
are
with
they?
Maylene and the Sons of Disaster. Yeah.
Oh, okay, interesting. Was that are they like now atheists, would you say, or they just don't include the Christianity with the music?
Zayo is an odd one because they've had like very public on stage breakups multiple times. They've had multiple lead singers. They've had if you look at their history, they've probably had like 30 members over time. And in the
Oh,
last,
okay.
God, it's 2025 now. In the last like 19 years, they've had pretty much all the same band members at this point. And
Hmm.
so all of the tumultuous lifestyle was like in the first 13 years of the band, but now like they'll still sing songs that very clearly have religious at least connotations,
Okay.
but they're not like preaching from the stage or anything like that. And none of the new stuff they're writing has any undertones of any of that. However, I don't know that they're even super vocal about it. But back in the day, oh man, yeah, like Zayo shows in the 90s were sermons. Zayo shows in
Oh.
the 90s were at Cornerstone in Illinois giving
Oh, yeah,
altar
yeah.
calls in between screaming their heads off. It was a
Wow.
very different time.
Did you ever go to a Cornerstone?
Cornerstone, California happened once, and I went to
Okay.
that one, and it was huge. I actually volunteered at a radio station, a Christian radio station, for a good
Okay.
2.5 years, and I helped with the event and did as much as I could. It was one of the craziest couple years of my life. There was one month I saw like 148 bands, I think was the number,
Oh,
just because I
nice.
did a couple different events, and it
Yeah.
it was it was a life-changing time. I mean, that was the thing. You go to these shows, and instead of spending $18 on a CD at a bookstore or whatever, I can get a CD for $8 from the band directly. And so that's where
Yeah.
so many of my albums came into my life, and I'd listen to on repeat. Yeah, it was just
Yeah.
hanging out with these
Yeah.
bands. I had bands stay at my house. I've had like God, probably 8 or 10 different living room shows over the years. Yeah.
What? Okay, please tell me you have camcorder footage of this.
I mean, I've got better than that. I've got like cell phone footage for some of them. It's
Is that
included.
better?
It is because
Okay.
it's better for archival reasons.
Okay.
I can
Hmm.
actually document that some of these things happened. Most of them happened in the modern era as an adult. I couldn't do it when I was living with parents and stuff. So once I
Right.
became, fuck it, like I don't care if 50 people are in this house, let's do it. And
Oh
it
my
was my house,
God.
and so yeah, most of them as an adult. Even in this house that I'm in Kansas City, Missouri, I've had at least one, if not two, different living room shows here so far.
Wow.
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah.
So like, is there any, of course you can mention bands, right? I mean, what bands did you get in there? I'm like
Uh,
fascinated by this.
the biggest one, which again probably not even that big. There's a indie semi rockish band named From Indian Lakes. Their lead singer Joey
Hmm.
Vannucci is incredible. He is in that style of like borderline emo, like the
Sure.
classic definition of emo,
Oh,
of what
you're
he would
speaking my
do.
language.
Yeah, and his vocals, and then the only reason I got him is because a close friend of mine, his name's Jeremy, was the lead singer of a band called Abandoned Kansas, and
Okay.
they toured just living rooms. And the two lead singers of these two bands came in. They both did like a 40-minute set, and it was incredible. There's a metalcore band named Phineas that has been
Hmm.
pretty
Okay.
huge for years. I was the first host of the very first Phineas acoustic show that they
Hmm.
played. They got a bunch of people in this tiny house in the desert. My house was stuffed, literally. Like, I think that one was our biggest one. We probably had 65, 70 people in this
Wow.
pretty small living room. And yeah, Phineas played. I've had the band The Classic Crime, pretty decent, again, Christian
Okay.
undertone band they've played my house here. They played my house in California. It's been a lot. Yeah.
That's amazing. I
Yeah.
feel like if you and this is to people listening, if you haven't been to a packed house show, that like you're really missing out. It's such a
Yeah.
wonderful time. It's like it's kind of like the best party you'll ever go to.
Yeah.
But when you say it is so, most of these shows were Christian, like like people were Christian, or the bands were Christian, or
I would say at about half and half, probably.
okay.
Yeah.
Was it like a straight edge kind of scene, or
I don't remember alcohol being at any of them.
really?
Yeah,
Okay.
people
Huh.
just being, I guess, like assuming respectful. But yeah, it was. I
Okay.
mean, there's still like dancing and stuff like that. It wasn't like
Sure.
monotone and everybody sitting there just swaying. But yeah,
Yeah.
it's been super respectful. I've been happy with
Okay.
every single experience.
Yeah. I guess then, from my experiences, they haven't been straight edge house parties,
I've
and
been to many of those too.
yeah, and they're fun, but whoever's hosting them, I'm just like, good thing one of our friends is a construction worker and can
Yep.
like patch up that hole in the wall, or or we'll like
Yeah.
come with a broom tomorrow and get all the cigarette butts or something. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I grew up in the punk scene in the desert in California, and there was a band from our little town that was pretty big. They had gotten signed at the end right before they broke up because they all went to college. But the
Mm.
other band that they were close to was a band from about 40 miles away called Lorraine Drive, and they had been signed for a while to, I think, Fearless at the time, like when
Oh,
Fearless
cool.
was pretty young. And
Yeah.
the lead singer of Lorraine Drive is now in a pretty huge band that most people hate, Hollywood Undead. um,
Okay, I think I've heard of
yeah,
them.
but
Huh.
I meant I went to many like garage shows where those two bands would play together, and I've seen people go through walls. I've seen
Oh,
people
wow.
crowd surf in a room where the ceiling is only 8 feet tall, and you're like, we'll lift you up, but this is going to be a little dicey.
That's amazing.
Yeah, it's been a good
You're
time.
you're making me think of something. I'm just 1 second. So I still need to track down a VCR. I don't have one anymore. But when my mom moved a couple years ago, I had to grab all my old VHS. And this is something I got in high school that it's on YouTube. I can send you the link, but I'm obsessed with this. But does this look familiar?
It
Is it
does,
backwards?
yeah. No, it's not, but
Okay.
God, I feel like
So
oh
this is
man.
all 1995 to 97. I guess it was made in 1998,
Yeah, I
and
see a
it's
bunch of names I
all
know.
yeah. It's like hardcore emo. There's some
Yeah,
punk. There's some grindcore. There's some more like indie rock stuff. Some bands that got really big. Some bands like I don't think would have existed outside of this
right.
era. But it is like 50%. Like 50% house shows, 50% like skate parks,
Yep.
like barely any actual venues. It is so good. And the other thing too, I mean, I wasn't expecting to go into this direction here, but a lot of this era, I think of like especially emo and post hardcore, wasn't recorded very well, in my
Not at all.
opinion. It's very weak sounding.
Yeah.
It doesn't, and then you watch this camcorder footage of these bands, and it's so punchy that
Yeah.
it's like, yeah, like people don't understand. Like it sounded phenomenal live, and I think that's why it managed to have a legacy. But
Yeah.
it's just for people that want to like check out, these older bands. They're not really going to get that same oomph that people got that were there.
Something, yeah, even in like my cell phone footage, something in the bass has never been picked up super well, but
Mm.
live, man, bass and drums together really drive some of these shows.
Yeah, yeah, for sure, for sure. And I think also sometimes the camcorder can, or the cell phone or whatever you use, can add a little bit more distortion.
Yep.
So like the clean sounding bands actually have more of a pop,
Yep.
which is why I end up watching a lot of Don Caballero live videos on YouTube. All that stuff.
Yep.
So
Definitely found myself doing some of that.
Oh, okay. Nice, nice. But yeah, no, that's amazing. I didn't know you were so specifically into like that kind of era. When you've mentioned that you were a big part of the punk scene. I kind
Yeah.
of assumed maybe more of like Fat Records kind of stuff, like No Effects and
Some of it,
Rancid
yeah,
and
but a lot of that, I mean, I wasn't like we mentioned the religious thing. I wasn't allowed into some of the music because it was so I'm not subversive, I guess is probably a way to say it. It is, Fat Mike has always been so specific about just being anti-establishment on everything, like most punk. And
yeah.
so, I mean, I also, as a the other big thing is, as a marching band kid, I was
Oh,
heavy into the ska
cool.
scene.
Oh, same. Yeah.
So like ska punk has been major for me. Like I'm still
Cool.
diehard for Streetlight Manifesto. The fact that they've got
Okay.
a new album finally coming out next month is like, I feel like a child again. It's crazy
Nice.
what is happening. And yeah, the punk that I was into definitely it definitely was a little more on the hardcore side. And then the whole scene kind of started around like 2004 to 5, really say hardcore's kind of gone, we're moving into the metalcore side. And just naturally at my age I was like, okay, this makes sense. And so I was heavy into that scene for at least a few years, and then eventually I just kind of have gotten away from it a little bit. But man, comfort food in all those songs still. I can still pretty much every single word for every song I grew up with. It's crazy.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
I had a ska punk band for probably about 5 years, I think it was. That we were around from, oh no, maybe not 5 years now that I think about it. I think we started around 2000, 2001, and then I left the band around 2004. And I think they kept going for another year or two. But I mean, for me, like I was super into ska at the time, but the one band that I still will listen to is Operation Ivy.
Love them.
Yeah, I feel like
Love
they
them.
kind of perfected the
Yeah.
sound, and it just makes sense that they went, or half of the band went on to do Rancid and become like
Yeah.
world famous. Yeah, other than that, like ska is such a it's such a specific sound.
Yeah.
I think it's easy, like once you get onto it. Maybe it's easy to stay on it, but if you get out of it, it's hard to get back on in a way. You know what I mean? But yeah, I think also too, like if I had a chance to see the specials or something live, I would totally snap at that because they're pretty classic too.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I've grown up with so many of these bands, and I'm still amazed that so many of them have carried on for years. Like the amount of times I've seen Real Big Fish over the years, and the
Oh
fact that
wow.
they still do shows is crazy. The amount of
Yeah.
times I've seen Less Than Jake shave somebody's head on stage at the Warp Tour is wild to
Nice.
me.
Yeah.
God, who was the one that the Toasters. I went years
Okay.
without
I
ever
don't
seeing
know
the
them.
Toasters. They're like one of the grandfathers of ska, like one of the real big early bands.
Oh, okay. Cool. Cool.
I saw them play here in Kansas City like 5, 8 years ago, something like that.
Wow.
Mind blowing experience as an adult. I was like, man, I grew up on these songs, and now I'm watching them play 1,500 miles away from where I grew up, and it's just life is weird, and I love it, and it's just it's that
Yeah.
piece of I don't know, because I didn't, as I alluded to, I didn't love my childhood. I didn't love my teenage years, but at
Yeah.
that time, music primarily being my go-to escapism because I was, you mentioned straight edge. I didn't, I've still never done drugs in my life, never smoked anything. I didn't
Okay.
try alcohol till I was 25. And so music was my only escape that I ever got away
Mm,
from. And having some of that here, it's this weird, almost like transportational experience where it's I don't ever long to be a teenager again, but feeling that moment
same.
is like the only thing that I feel lost in those memories again.
Yeah.
It's incredible.
Well, it's almost like the scene and the community is sort of like your chosen
Yep,
family, you know?
absolutely.
And also, too, I'm sure so many of those kids were also going through the same things.
Yep,
I mean, it was kind of like with all my friends and I that, I met living in the suburbs that started punk bands and everything. Like we
yep.
all had our own, parental issues or mental health issues or whatever, and but the thing is, we didn't realize it until we were adults and we're like, hey, wait a second. I think we all had this in common or that, it's like, oh, I think that's why we were hanging out. But we also just love the music. So
Yeah.
maybe this music is kind of designed for that, like I think people tend to write off teen angst as like, oh, they're just a bratty teen. But I'm like, no, usually it comes from like something bad is happening,
Yeah,
you
usually.
know?
It's angsty for a reason.
Exactly. Yeah. So I found though around that time, being into punk in high school, that was when I was the least into movies, and that was like the one thing that I couldn't really balance in life. Like, was that kind of the same for you, or have you always been able to balance film and music at the same time?
So what's interesting is I was raised in Southern California, but in a very isolated, very small town. I lived in a town at the time. I think it had like 22,000 people, and so everything that we got at like even our local mom and pop store was all just the mainstream stuff.
Mm,
They couldn't survive if they were renting Evil Dead at the time. That wasn't something that
really?
people. Yeah, they weren't.
Jesus.
People weren't clamoring to see the Evil Dead because it wasn't popular yet,
Huh.
and they could rent 35 copies of Jurassic Park in one day, but Evil Dead would never make them profit. So
Yeah.
I saw most mainstream things growing up that was coming out at the time. Films like An Officer and a Gentleman or uh, these random ass very dad type movies because that's who made the decisions in my house was my dad. I grew up watching most of those, but then the only way that I ever truly came to, I don't even want to say like movies, but like the idea of film as an art form and as a commodity really was through the music.
Hmm.
There is a couple bands that I was really close to that they funny enough were religious, but a lot of the stuff that inspired the music or had genuine like the entire song is about a specific movie was films. They would
Hmm.
write about things that influenced them growing up. They'd write songs about zombies and these little movies that their parents had shown them or that their older brothers would get from somebody at school and pass it along like most of us were able to see at some point. And so they'd
Hmm.
say, hey, you got all these CDs here. We love seeing our other bands, friends bands that we know and stuff, but let's watch a movie. Literally, I'd have bands hang out at my house and be like, let's watch a movie. Like, I don't really have any. Like what do you want to
Hmm.
watch? And I've got a handful. I've got like 20 things, and eventually they'd be like, well, do you have The Evil Dead, or do you have, American Psycho, or something like that? I'm like, I've never
Yeah.
heard of these. What are they? And so
Wow.
my Tuesday morning ritual of going to every single thing for music eventually became, oh, they also have a movie section over there. Let's start looking at those. And then suddenly my DVD collection was about the same size as my music collection. And then shortly after that, it was almost double my music collection. And I was watching stuff literally every single day, probably a movie or two in between work shifts as much as I possibly could. And getting what, most people that are into cult films now, it's the very mainstream stuff. I was watching the stuff that was coming out of the 80s for the very first time. I was watching sequels to classic horror films that I didn't even know existed. I was watching full franchises in a matter of a couple days and falling in love with them. And through that and finally going, oh, I understand that I am a very privileged white person that is able to purchase all these movies, but when I watch these, And when I watch things that are challenging myself, I am being subjected to other cultures that I can never afford to travel to. And so I
Hmm.
dove into film in a way that taught me about the world, and not being jaded like I'm going to watch a film that was made in the UK and suddenly discover what all of Britain is about or anything.
Right, right, right.
But I can see like there are other people out there that are different than me. And
Yeah.
I fell in love with coming from an isolated town and being able to essentially travel through film
Mm.
and challenge myself in a way where I was raised in basically a racist household. I was raised in a
Oh, wow.
culture at the time that looked down on other people. You know, the everybody always talks about the welcoming aspect of the music scene, but in all reality, a lot of it is anti-trans, the whole
Oh, really?
LGBTQ crowd. All
Yeah.
of religion is like inherently racist. All of that is in a way done to keep other people below you. That they want you to feel lifted up and others to feel less than, so that they can feel, oh, I'm at my bottom and I have nowhere else to go. And through all of that, I went, screw that. I'm discovering worlds that I never would have, and just
Wow.
fell in love with it.
Yeah. I can't say I had the same experience really then because I found at least like our punk scene is where you would find more queer kids.
Right.
I mean, I grew up in a town that has now changed more culturally. But growing up there, it was predominantly white. And then starting to go to shows in Toronto was when I noticed like, oh, there's more people of color here and things like that. So it felt like punk was, I think punk if you maybe you'd agree like outside of the Christian side of things is generally more like left wing and welcoming. I mean there is still like right wing kind of
Yeah,
close minded
absolutely.
punk bands, but for the most part it would be fairly welcoming. Like if you went to Warped Tour or something, you would be hard pressed to find like really close minded kids, I
It
think.
it really is. It comes down to location, I think, because I
Oh,
mean,
true.
certain
Yeah.
certain certain cities in Southern California, absolutely. Other cities, it's gonna feel like borderline full blown white Republican, and that's pretty much all they accept.
Wow.
Everything is very territorial, and when it comes to not even just the religious side of things, just the, I don't know, people gravitate to people like them essentially, especially at that
Sure.
age,
Yeah.
because it's what they know. And a lot of people that are the what we know as punk and accepting and all that truly is the older people usually in the punk scene. It's the
Mm,
people that have been there for years that understand everybody deserves a voice, everybody deserves a chance. And
yeah.
as much as many of the shows that I went to was welcoming and all that, and yeah, I fully agreed about stuff like Warp Tour for the most part, although there was other bad things happening at Warp Tour. Well,
What does that mean?
I mean, like a lot of the bands that were at Warp Tour have been like accused of sexual assault and stuff now, so or
Oh,
grooming
yeah, you're right.
underage
You're right.
kids.
Oh, yeah, you're right.
But
God damn it. Why can't we have nice things?
at the end of the day, while I agree that punk is inherently fairly accepting, there's certainly aspects of it that can be very off-putting. And honestly,
Sure.
that's true about a lot of the film scene as well. Like so many people talk about
Mm,
how the horror scene is like we welcome all the outcasts and misfits and all that. And on the surface, that's true. But at the same time, if you're like a trans filmmaker, you're getting shunned from a lot of experiences.
really?
Maybe
Yeah.
not in 2025
Hmm.
as much, but
Yeah.
in 2015, you're you're kind of screwed. In early conventions, you're screwed.
The only thing I would say though is wouldn't you say it's not specific to horror, like would be kind of in general
I
film,
well,
like all genres, like the film industry as a whole?
I don't know that a film industry as a whole prides itself as being as open and accepting as that.
True.
I
Yeah.
think horror kind of really stands on that,
Yeah.
outwardly at least. But the other thing about that is, I think it's really just any organization of people.
Yeah.
They all under the surface are kind of shitty. You just got to find good people to
Yeah.
work with.
Very true. Also, something to add to that, when I had Louise Ward on, I think maybe the first time, she talked about how in a lot of like trauma films or even the films that she worked with this filmmaker. Ryan Nicholson, I believe his name is. He did a lot of films for Unearthed. And she
Hmm.
was saying that, even though you'd see trans people in those films almost as the butt of the joke, it was the only time she get to see trans people in these
Yep.
films. So to her, it was almost like better in to some degree, and like at
Yeah.
least there is some form of representation. Um, but like I feel weird trying to make a point with that as it doesn't benefit me per se, but like I didn't say it initially, but I think when she said that, it was sort of like, okay, that's giving me a different perspective on things.
It's it's essentially like all press is good press sort of feeling. All
Yeah, that's a good way to
representation
put it.
can be good representation, and for many people, I don't know, like being able to raise my kids in a household where we watch a film that is clearly marketed towards black families. At least now my kids know that black families exist and live just like us. In my house growing up, my parents never would have put that on.
Really?
Yeah, not at all.
Wow. Okay. I'm sorry to hear that. That sounds pretty traumatic for one thing. I think, but again, that's coming from my experiences of like even though I grew up in a predominantly white town, people still viewed racism as like very much like a taboo, terrible thing. And
Yeah.
so if you were exposed to racism, you'd still be like, oh my God, that happened to you. Like I remember, meeting the first outwardly racist person at one of my last jobs and just was like, what? Like, what do you
Yeah.
mean? Like, really? Like, what's going on? Like how did you get here? Like what? It doesn't make sense to me.
I'm so envious of you.
Oh, I'm so
I
sorry.
being raised in California, everything is like outwardly liberal and everybody is just privately racist, like good respecting people are.
Yeah.
But moving to Kansas City, Missouri was the biggest wake up call of my life. We moved here in 2013 and I moved here sight unseen. I'd never been to Missouri, never been to Kansas, moved 1,500 miles away from home for a job. And it was decent because Kansas City, Missouri itself it's a liberal stronghold. It's a big city. It's a very arts focused town. But then when we got pregnant with my first kids, my wife and I were looking at our life, and I was like, I don't really make enough to support a family. So I started doing things on the side, and one of them is essentially sales. And so I started going outside of Kansas City, and the the immediate wake up call of, oh, this city is very liberal, to I drive 10 minutes away, and it's like, oh, those are all Confederate flags, was a very weird change for me.
Oh,
Yeah.
yeah, yeah. Oh my God. And then what do you do at that point? I mean, I guess you feel you yourself being a white man, you feel
Yeah.
safe, but then to me, it's always a thing where you're like, well, do I be even nice to this person? Like, do I just forget what
Yeah.
I'm seeing? Like, it becomes like a moral dilemma in a way. Um, yeah, but at the same time, you're going to their house, so I don't know.
Generally, it was businesses. And that's the craziest thing is
Oh,
around
okay.
here,
What?
businesses have Confederate flags
Oh
outside.
my
Or
God.
the other big thing, not to get super political on the show, but there's so many like
By all
calling cards
means.
now. I mean, their businesses proud to display what president they're supporting. And
Oh yeah.
so many businesses around here are like, this is so weird and deeply American. So I'm sorry to toil your Canadian show with this, but like they'll name their company like I I can't even think of like a believable option here, but like his plumbing service, and literally it's in reference to God. And the back
Okay.
of their vans all say like in service of the Lord, or they'll have the little Jesus fish. And I'm like, I'm not going to help your business. That
Yeah.
to me is saying, stay away. We do not welcome everybody.
Okay. For a second, I thought you were gonna say his as in Trump, though. I mean, that
No, that
we
that
can
that's a
we can
different thing.
agree,
Yeah.
like being Christian is not as nearly as bad as being Trump. I mean, I don't even want to enter into like being Christian is bad. Like, do you know what I mean? Like, I mean,
Yes,
people are free
I
to practice whatever religion they want, but
I agree with you. However, in Missouri, those cross over 98.5% of the time, at least.
which is interesting because again, like growing up here, um, in high school, I met more people that were Christian and were kind of close minded. They wouldn't be like outwardly like they wouldn't harass anyone, or they no one was racist, but it was definitely like the homophobia thing would be an issue. But I'd say beyond high school, I met a lot more people that were Christian and were like Christian and queer. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like it was a lot more like open minded. And I think to me, it's like, oh, that's ideal. Like, amazing. You managed to figure out the secret formula, like you're not blending religion with politics
Exactly.
in a terrible way. And that's kind of how I want people to address religion, is
Yeah,
like,
please.
it should be a beautiful thing that you do for yourself and brings joy to your life. And it doesn't affect you in a way that makes you a shitty person to everyone else.
And you don't make choices that affect other people based on your personal religion.
Yeah. So I'm almost wondering then if your strong Christian or Christian stronghold, let's word it like that, kind of maybe pushed you into horror more because like horror has always seemed like more of the satanic, dark kind of genre, right?
In a way, I don't think it did because I mentioned that I was kept away from a lot of these things, but also I was kind of raised on horror as well. There were
Oh,
certain
okay.
things. My parents showed me Halloween when I was 8 as like, let's see if you can grow up through this a little bit, and it scared the crap out of me. But even earlier than that, like I. There were certain things like my family was separated. My birth mom and my dad were separated very young, and
Okay.
it's a weird upbringing. We don't need to get into it, but like my dad's died like 3 times or 2 times, I think, and he's still alive
He's
today.
died 3 times.
Yes, my dad is I'm a giant man. My dad is somehow bigger than me even. I'm six
Okay.
five and weigh
Oh,
a
wow.
lot. My dad is six
Sure.
eight and
Wow.
massive. My uncle was 6'9". My grandparents were both over 6'2", 6'3". My sisters are both over 6 feet. It's crazy. Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah,
I feel
we're a
so
giant
bad
family.
for your mom.
So my dad had a lot of heart problems because of his
Okay.
size,
Oh,
and
right. Yeah, yeah.
when he, gosh, at the time he had to have been 30. No, not 30. Sorry, like 22, 23. He just straight
Oh,
died at the dinner table.
he
Um,
died?
he died. Like the paramedics had to come get him. He was not responsive. His heart had stopped. They brought him back at the hospital, and then he had to like live at the hospital for a few months because of all the heart issues. And while he was in there, died again in the hospital, like full blown. We don't think we can bring him back, and then they happened to, and he had to
Okay.
stay in there for physical therapy, all kinds of stuff. But anyways, so it was a tumultuous time. So like because my parents had divorced, I had extended family watching me, and through that, a couple of them made some poor decisions. I had babysitters show me Child's Play when I was like 4.
Okay.
My birth mom was watching me one time, and she showed me Carrie when I was like 6. I had no clue what a period was or why we were throwing tampons at this
Just
girl in the
starts right
shower.
away with that. Yeah.
And so I'd witnessed some of these things, but even a little older, like at like 10 years old, I fell in love with The Omen because it was this religious film, but horrifying. And so to this
Right.
day, like I adore the first Omen movie. I really like them all, but yeah, that first one was a big part of it.
It's
So I
great.
don't
Yeah.
necessarily think religion drove me into it,
Okay.
but one of the things that I think religion did give me more of a passion for in that is at the heart of religion, one of the things that you, at least for me, used to before all the political identity stuff, I used to associate it primarily with empathy.
Hmm.
And horror was this genre that really gave me, at least, this deep feeling of empathy.
Mm.
You watch some of these movies almost in a way like almost to feel something, to feel emotions if you're numbed
Right.
to things at the time. And now I can say, oh, this person is trapped in this basement getting tortured. I don't know what that feels like, but I can deeply feel for them
Yeah.
and appreciate that moment of like solace with them almost.
Sure. Sure.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I always look at horror as being cathartic.
Yeah,
So,
absolutely.
yeah. So I could see where you're getting the emotional
Yeah.
reaction from that. Did you find then that you ever went through a period where you were trying to find like crazier horror movies or more intense horror movies? Like, did you ever go through that?
I mean, I did this the classic thing where you get past the iceberg of horror picture and you see, oh,
Okay.
what's Faces of Death, and I've
Right,
seen a
right.
Serbian film, and I've seen all kinds of classic, like, really terrible indie films that are only existing because they're extreme and all that. I've
Sure.
watched a lot of them. It's not to subject myself to extreme horror, but at the
Okay.
same time, I really, I don't know. I try to pride myself in a wide breadth of knowledge, and so
Yeah.
to discuss life, I got to be able to know what Cannibal Holocaust is, even though it
Right, right.
hurts to watch because I love animals.
Oh.
I got to be able to have the same experiences with a lot of people with some of these classic movies that are
Mm.
big deals and big reference points. And now that's the joy of what I'm doing now. A lot of the stuff is getting re-released, and I get to work on them or help behind the scenes or
Oh, right, right.
do what
Yeah,
I
yeah.
can to
I fe we should I'm
process some of
like,
it.
let's stop talking about our childhood and start
No, I'm
talking about
fine.
your
Like I said, we can talk for 4 hours. I'm here for you, Bob.
Thank you. I appreciate that. Well, I mean, it made me want to ask, like, what is the most disturbing film for you that you've seen? The one that was like, okay, that nothing will top that.
Man, um, I don't even know if I have a proper response to this because there are things
Hmm.
like so many people refer to a Serbian film as that film for them. I watched that and I was like, this is what people have been whining about for years.
Yeah. I like the movie. I
It's
do
not
find it
bad.
disturbing,
Yeah,
but
there's plenty of films that I found much more disturbing than that.
same.
I really go back to my first experience, and this is going to sound silly because it's not like even a torture movie, but the movie The Strangers from I think 2008. Um,
Really? Huh.
I watched this movie, and growing up in an isolated town that's very small, and multiple times in my life living in a house where other houses aren't within 100 feet necessarily,
Okay.
and so realizing that at any point somebody could knock on my door and kill me and I have no choice. And at the end of the movie, they tell you we just did this because you were home. Like, fuck. Is there anything more
Spoiler
disturbing
alert.
than that? I mean, I hope by now people have seen the Strangers,
Right,
but
right.
sorry to everybody that hasn't. Yeah, it was one of those things that was just a wake up call. It's not even. I mean, it is
Mm,
kind of a home invasion movie, but it's more of just like you existed and we took that away from you. So
just for the hell of it.
yeah,
Yeah, there's something existentially upsetting about that.
yeah,
Um, I mean, for me, I always say irreversible.
yeah,
And at this point, from doing the podcast and just being like a fucked up person, I've tried watching, the most extreme whatever, and there's been some really impressive stuff and some really upsetting stuff. Um, but nothing has ever topped that film for me, and it's kind of made me realize that it's not about, to me at least, it's not about like how hard something goes or how twisted something is. It's always going to be how it's executed,
yeah,
and also for me, again, it's not about like you could show me the most graphic, like someone's head getting ripped apart or something, but if I see the way someone is actually like emoting, that is what
yeah,
hits me harder. And I think that film, like, it really did achieve something, um, just unprecedented. Like
yeah.
no one had ever captured, sexual assault like that before, and no one had captured so many other things and packaged it in this film that really makes you question so much. Yeah, I've been wanting to watch the reversed cut, and I haven't seen that yet. Have you watched it?
I've not watched the reverse cut, and I don't know. I revere that movie a lot in the way that you just said because it's I don't know. There's something deeply unrelenting about that film.
Oh yeah.
How you are, and not everybody talks about quote that scene, but there's so much in that film that is not just that scene. I mean, we
Yeah.
start with just this immense abrasive violent scene, and
Yeah.
really the emotional aspect of watching it in reverse and having that final scene be not this abrasive gut punch that you've been feeling the whole time, but an emotional gut punch. I feel like putting that in the right order is going to take away the feeling of that in a way. And
Mm.
I don't want to reverse that, pardon the pun there, but it kind of reminds me, and actually this might be a good answer for what you asked. As an adult, not sure if you've seen this one, but the movie 4 months, 3 weeks, and 2 days. It's a Romanian
Oh,
film about abortion and how
okay.
this woman is found to be pregnant and needing to get an abortion. And because it's outlawed, the things that she has to go through to feel like she's taking care of herself, and the exploitation of her vulnerability, which is a lot of what I felt with Irreversible, is what it is, a truly disturbing movie, but done to not be extreme. It's not meant to
Sure.
be anything like Irreversible or The Strangers or, you know, a
It's not
Serbian
a horror
film or anything
movie.
like that. Well, it kind of is, but it's
Right,
not
right,
done like that. It's more of like an emotional dread movie.
right, right. It does kind of make me think of like, well, okay. What was that one called? I always get the order wrong. It's like sometimes, rarely, never, always, or something. Did you
I've
see
not
that
seen it
one?
yet. No, I need to. It's been on my list.
Oh, it's excellent. Yeah, it's really
Yeah.
good. I mean, it probably hits even harder now. We
Yeah.
talked about this before we recorded, the overturning of Roe versus Wade, which is just like so
Yeah.
fucked. So I feel like that. It's one of those things where whoever's for that happening, I'm like, just sit down and watch this movie. Just watch this movie.
Yeah.
That's all you got to do. You got 2 hours. Just sit down and watch it. Then let's hear your take.
Yeah.
Because you're clearly not thinking about anyone but yourself when you make these decisions,
Yeah.
and that's ridiculous. But what you're describing too makes me think of the. It's a recent movie. I watched it. I think a couple months ago. The Girl with the Needle.
The Girl with the Needle. I'm not recognizing that name.
Yeah, it's trying to remember what country it's from. I want to say it's like maybe Danish or something. It's made black and white, but it's like a new film.
Oh, I
Um,
remember this poster. Yeah.
yeah, it's an excellent movie, but it's a heavy film as well. And like I watched it with my wife, and it's not even really that graphic, but I would say because of the subject matter, it does get quite heavy.
Hmm.
And about maybe an hour and a half in, my wife was like, you know what, I think I gotta like bow out. And then I finished it the next day. But highly recommend that one. It kind of made me think of like a little bit of like Michael Haneke, a little bit of weirdly the Elephant Man or something. Like there's a little bit of I was saying like magic realism in it, but yeah, it's just a unique film, and it's also based on a true story. Like,
Hmm.
well, I think if you know too much about the true crime story that's based on, you'll obviously like kind of it will spoil the film for you. But yeah, I highly recommend that one.
Good to know. Yeah.
Yeah,
The poster itself is very like
yeah.
magnetic. Even they did very well with the imagery on this.
I felt like we were completing a list of like top five abortion films.
Well, and I was just thinking about that. If anybody's hearing me talk, I just sound like a political wacko, but I'm not. I promise.
Oh, what do you mean?
I just because that's all I've talked about for half of this so
Oh
far.
no, that's okay. No, I mean, look, like you are saying things I agree with.
There are
Like,
normal people in America, I guess, is the way I should say it.
yeah, oh yeah, yeah, I'm sure. I mean,
Not many, but some.
okay, this is the thing I've noticed as a Canadian and talking and meeting so many Americans, that every American I meet is like, "Oh yeah, I agree with the same things you do. I'm totally
Yeah,
sane, but everyone else sucks here."
yeah.
But everyone I meet says that. Do you know what I'm saying? There are a lot of you out there. I just don't know when you all have to leave.
Well, it's feeling closer every day. I will say that.
Yeah, I don't blame you. I mean, it's even scarier for us up here in Canada.
Yeah.
I've have friends of mine that like live closer to the border, and they're just like, "Are we going to get invaded? Like, what's going on?" Yeah, but I kind of wonder how that's going to be reflected in film. I don't know if you saw Civil War, which came out, I think, last year or the
I
year
did,
before.
yeah.
What did you think of that one?
I I appreciated it more than I enjoyed it. I feel like the people that are what is the best way to frame this? It's a very divisive time in America, and for a lot of people, it's divisive for reasons that movie did not lean into heavily enough to critique and then lambast very specific behaviors. They more so basically just displayed like territorialism in a way.
Yeah.
People very specifically holding on to their property or guarding their stronghold in a way that is honestly a little empathetic. You can understand wanting to protect your home or wanting to get 5 of your neighbors and build a little compound and not let anybody in it because you will feel safer. I totally understand the security aspect of that. But we're not even doing that in a welcoming environment that allows people to also feel safe around you, who is clinging onto these things in an identity fashion. And that
Mm.
the film itself, I think because they marketed it as essentially a divisive, the two factions of America are finally fighting type of film, it was more a movie about photojournalism, which I
Right.
appreciate, but if they had
Yeah.
marketed it as such, it would have probably landed better for a lot more people. And I'm
Hmm.
not against I mean, I don't love it, but I understand why some of these studios do like sensationalist marketing and all that. But when the subject of your film is divisive politics, maybe don't. I mean, we're already in such a vulnerable
I know,
position.
I
Maybe
know.
just pull back a little bit.
Yeah. Well, I think I wrote in my letterboxd review something about how it seems ironic that a film about photojournalists would not give you any kind of idea of what is going on, because that is the whole point of these journalists risking their
Yeah,
lives to give the truth. And we watched this whole film where we were like, oh yeah, it's like it's terrible, like what is going on here, but we never found out what is going on there. Do you know what I mean? Like,
yeah,
and I guess that can work as like an interesting device, but when the ending came up, for me, I just felt so disconnected. I wasn't able to like lose myself in the cinematic moment of the
right.
invasion of the White House. Um, so yeah, wasn't a fan of that one. I Alex Garland, I'm kind of like so about, to tell you the truth. Like Men was I really enjoyed Men, but because I watched it high and I laughed so hard at the ending, I
Yeah.
was like, this is incredible.
My favorite from him is Annihilation by far.
I haven't
I
seen that actually. I've heard it's
adore
great though.
Annihilation. It's like this weird like prismatic world to lose yourself in, and
Cool.
it's just such a surreal experience. I love it.
Yeah. I guess for me, it would be 28 Days Later, if I can call that an
If you
Alex
just
Garland
count
film.
writing, yeah,
Yeah. I mean, I love that movie and I hadn't
same.
seen it in a long time. And my wife had never seen it. So I showed it to her just a few months ago because, the trailer came out for the new one. And I was like, oh my God. Like, this is something I'm starting to realize, is that I think we all kind of wrote off the 2000 to 2010 like era of horror. It was just like, oh, it was all torture porn, or oh, it was all like super harsh, blah blah blah. But I'm going back to some of these films. I'm like, oh, these are actually like really good movies.
I love that whole era.
I love it more now, I'd say, because I would say around the early 2010s is when I started to get pushed away from modern horror, and that was when like my best friend started showing me all the horror films that, no lie, like 5 years later, Vinegar Syndrome would be putting out. Like he was
Right.
like, he had his finger on the pulse and was like, you need to see Ghost House, and you need to see I'm trying to think like he would just show me all this stuff, and then he was the one that introduced me to Vinegar Syndrome, and that kind of started the what I think now we're on is like the new era of Blu-ray collecting, of all these boutique Blu-rays where it's taking me back to like getting into record labels, or you know what I mean? Like it
Yeah.
has that kind of quality to it.
Yeah, it definitely does. I mean, when you can look on some of these movies, the to get into the vinegar side of things, something like Spookies that comes out,
Oh,
and
love it.
it's inherently a god awful movie, but it is so
I
entertaining to
disagree.
watch. It's a blast to watch. I mean, any movie with the basement full of farting zombies is going to be great, but
Of
the
course.
the fact that it gets beautiful packaging on a wonderfully restored disc and is accompanied by two feature-length documentaries that are better than the film, in my opinion, like it doesn't get better than that. Like that's kind of
No.
incredible.
Yeah. Did you own the there was like a Blu-ray that was released by I think a company from Montreal, or some Quebec, I think. So they put out a Blu-ray maybe a year before the Vinegar Syndrome one came out, and that was like super limited edition.
Hmm.
So I had a copy of that, and I remember, and it was okay. Like it was, but it was a little bit closer to what the YouTube
Right.
version was. And I remember thinking, like, this is fine. Like, I can watch it. It's actually not that bad. They did like a little bit of cleaning up. But when the Vinegar Syndrome restoration dropped, it was just like, holy
It's a
fuck.
different movie.
Oh my god. Well, they slapped the shit out of that.
Yeah.
They cleaned the hell out of it. And that's the one thing that keeps me coming back to Vinegar Syndrome is like, even if I've found their output like kind of hit or miss over the past few years, um, the restorations are always worthwhile, you know?
Yeah. The
So,
restoration
yeah.
work behind the scenes of these companies is probably the most mind-blowing part to me.
Mm. Yeah, yeah. But don't they all tend to work with the same people that do the restorations?
No, not
Oh,
necessarily. There are, like, I work very closely with Def Crocodile and
right.
Craig Rogers at Def Crocodile. He does most of the Def Crocodile restorations himself.
Oh, wow.
Craig has been working in restoration for years, and about, I don't know, maybe 4 out of every 10 of the releases they put out are restored by like National Archives overseas.
Okay.
But most everything, Craig is toiling for weeks on by himself to get these looking as good as they do.
Wow.
Vinegar Syndrome, a lot of their stuff is restored by their restoration artist.
Yeah, I knew that. Yeah, yeah.
But yeah, many of the other companies like Kino, Shout Factory, a lot of them use a company called Duplatech out of LA. There's a couple other restoration places that work. TerrorVision even has some of their own restoration work that they do. Severin has some of their own people, but yeah, some of the basically the ones that are churning out titles like an enormous amount of titles. They can't hire enough people to do that many restorations, so they're going to, like, Duplatech is essentially a restoration factory. They
Right.
have a team of people that 5 people will all hit one movie. They'll all work on it for like 4 days and be done. And
Wow.
yeah,
Okay.
it's crazy how quickly they're getting those turned over.
And who did you say works with Duplatech? Like of the
Like Shout
boutique
Factory
Blu-rays?
does,
Oh,
Criterion
okay.
has, Kino Lorber
Really?
uses them. I think Criterion has at least on a couple titles, yeah.
Okay.
But
Mm,
I mean, obviously, Janus and their inner restoration work does most of their stuff, I believe.
okay. And so you've been working closely with Def Crocodile. That's one company that I haven't jumped into yet, but I'm starting to see a lot of like posts on Instagram, showing these different. I'm they're like Czech. A lot of them are like Czech fairy tales. Is that right? Or like Russian fairy
Yeah,
tales?
yeah, we've got a lot of Eastern European stuff that we've put out. In fact, one of the coolest part, you can go to their website and they've got, I don't remember what it's called, but there's a tab called Fun, and one of them is like, where in the world is Def Crocodile or something like that. They have a world
Mm.
map to show where all of their films have come from, so that you can go
Oh,
take a look at
cool.
that. It's such a cool feature. Yeah.
Would you, just for people listening, be able to give like your top five of the Def Crocodile releases?
Oh man, happily.
Oh, okay, okay.
They have done so much over time that is kind of hard to do this. And obviously, I'm going to be slightly biased because I've done special features on some of these, and I have also I've worked on other aspects of many of these movies. So my number one may still be Kinzatsa, which is a uh this is such a weird film to describe. So basically it's like a sci-fi movie that is a combination of like four different genres, but basically it's these people are transported to this world that is all like Dune, essentially. It's just
Okay.
dirt and sand, but it's like this post-apocalyptic world where they are using other things as currency, and but it's like cheeky fun as you're watching it. They're in like these
Mm.
steampunk aesthetics the entire time, and it's just abrasive and silly and awkward, and it's definitely my style of humor. And then one of the other big things that they've hit on a lot so far, we've released 3 Bill Plimpton films, and I
Oh, okay.
adore the Tune. His animation was huge for me growing up because I, I loved Weird Al, and he did stuff with
Yeah.
Weird Al back in the day. He did stuff with Kanye West early before he went insane. He did a lot of stuff for Liquid TV on MTV, so I loved
Right.
all of that stuff. So yeah, the Tune would probably be number 2 for me. There is I think it's 4 films box set from the Iranian director Shahram Mokri,
Okay.
and there is a movie in his box set called Fish and Cat, which is a modern masterpiece that nobody knows, and it's
Never
like
heard of it.
this
Yeah.
crazy, essentially like one take slasher movie that is amazing, just absolutely wild, super stylish, beautifully shot, and essentially rescued because he's Iranian. It's very, very difficult to get stuff out of there into the rest of the world.
Wow.
um Gosh, other than that, let's see. This should have been my number 1. There is a wild German animated movie called Felidae that is
I've
a
heard about
cat
that one.
movie
Yeah. Yeah.
that is, I mean, you see cats killing each other. You see they discuss cat sex. There's like people experimenting on cats, and it's got like this cheeky sense of humor. The cats call the humans can openers because that's all they're good for.
Oh.
It is this very adult animated movie, and it's amazing. The
Nice.
dialogue is perfect, but I grew up on like Don Bluth animated movies. So like
Sure.
Five O
Same.
Goes West was huge for me. Anastasia was like an amazing movie when I was growing up, and
All dogs go to heaven.
love that movie.
Yeah. Yeah.
Felidae, they basically said, let's make an adult Don Bluth movie. And so it's the
Sick.
same style of animation, and it's done in a way where cats are fucking and killing. And
Oh, wow.
what's better than that?
It's kind of like
Um,
a giallo, right? A
yeah,
little bit.
kind of. Yeah,
Okay.
it's like
Cool.
a murder mystery type of thing. Yeah, absolutely.
I think I heard about it first on the Unwatchables podcast
Mm,
or Unwatchables. Are you familiar with that podcast?
I am, yeah.
Okay. Well, we should get you on there.
I would be
you,
happy to.
yeah, you'd be great. You'd be great. Have you talked to them before?
I've not. No, I need to.
Okay. I'll pass on the contacts.
Amazing.
Yeah. Yeah. And you got one
uh,
more, or is
One
that was
more,
four?
sure. One that they just released that we were able to work on, and I did a little like restoration comparison video for it. They put out it's called a pink film, but
Hmm.
it's a really early one, and it's not even like that sexual, which a lot of people refer to the pink genre as very, very sexual. And the
Sure.
title is this is hilarious, but the title is called The Inflatable Sex Doll of the Wastelands.
Oh yeah,
And
I've seen that. Yeah,
so
that's a good movie.
it's a great movie, but every version that people have seen before this restoration, not to like put it down or anything like that, but this is going to sound like I'm putting it down because I kind of am. They were shit, and this
Hmm.
new restoration is mind blowing. The movie, all
Wow.
the audio has been restored from the original master. All of the film itself looks incredible. The story is weird and surreal and like
Yeah.
time bendy, and you don't know necessarily what is even truly happening at certain times in this movie. And then
Yeah.
the end is like this weird subversive, like sort of sexual dive into just like the perversion of people in a way. And I love this movie. It's so well done.
It's a little bit in the vein of was it Branded to Kill?
Yeah, it's the same writer.
Oh, okay. Yeah, yeah. That makes sense. Yeah.
Yeah.
And okay, so Deaf Crocodile's putting that out?
It just got released in a brand new deluxe beautiful Blu-ray package. Yes, sir.
Okay. So cuz I know you also work with TerrorVision.
Yes, sir.
I for some reason thought that they were putting that out, but they're putting out another Pink film.
They just released Gushing Prayer, which the
Okay.
subtitle on that one turns people away too. It's Gushing Prayer. I think it's Gushing Prayer, a 15-year-old prostitute or something like that.
Ooh.
But she was
Okay.
not 15 at the time, and it's yes, it's a very good movie, but it's that one's a little more sexual for sure.
So that one I haven't seen, and I was curious about that one because I am a fan of Pink films.
Well, what's
Um,
super interesting, Third Window Films over in the UK
yeah,
released they put out, I think it was 3 volumes of like classic Pink films, they called it, or something like that. And each one was
yeah,
a double feature. Their first volume has been out of print for ages, but that volume
right,
is Inflatable Sex All the Wastelands and Gushing Prayer.
right. Okay,
And so now I've
so
worked on both of them at 2 different companies.
so the licensing was like freed up, and then these two companies took it. Is that how that
Different
works?
territory. Third Window
Oh,
Films is over in the
true.
UK, so 2 other companies could release it here. But I
Mm.
think theoretically somebody else could release it in the UK as well because it's been fully out of print for a while.
Mm. So I'm not sure how into or familiar you are with Pink films. I've done a few episodes, previous seasons, people coming on to talk about it, and I've noticed that it seems like there's maybe going to be a big wave of them coming out
Yes.
soon. I don't know if you could speak to that at all, if you're working with any others, or you have some intel, because I've been hearing some Sato films might be coming out from. I probably shouldn't say, but yeah.
So I do know of at least a few that are in the works. The
Okay.
hard part, and this is where a lot of people have, I've gotten like DMs from people criticizing or public comments on other message boards criticizing what I do because they basically say I'm a shill for these films because all I say is people should buy them. I don't. If you don't like the movies or you can't afford it, I understand. I'm not telling you to do any of that. However, with something like what we're talking about right now, this is a deeply important part of it because the reality is Pink films do not get a lot of support. They do not sell well. And if we want to see more of them released, people have to purchase them
Yeah.
because some of these companies, they have signed films and they could go through the process of releasing them, but they've since released other Pink films that have not sold well, and so literally they don't want to go through the financial burden of producing the physical releases to not sell them. They would be investing more money in a losing game. So even though they've already paid the licensing fee, they're not losing more money by not releasing them.
True.
They want to
That makes
release them,
sense.
but if they're not selling, they simply can't.
Okay. Okay. So everyone listening, I think we've hit the bottom of the barrel for slashers. I think we have. At this point, everything coming out is like you either getting, I know you did last summer, the 20th edition, or you're getting a film that is like a 1 out of 5. So
I,
Pink Films is where we got to put our money.
other than I would agree with that, other than the fact of like very studio heavy films that are being held on to by Disney Fox, or another one of the
Oh,
big
okay.
ones is Lionsgate. So like Disney, because they now own Fox and Touchstone and like 18 other companies, there's all kinds of films that they own the rights to that are good that they just won't license. So
Okay.
we've hit the bottom of our allowable barrel. But if
Ah,
some
okay.
other venues opened, there would be basically a gold mine to hit from some of these other companies.
Okay. Huh. Well, either way, I mean, we should buy these Pink Films.
Yeah, and that's
Yeah.
honestly that's true for a lot of things. There are a lot of just weird complaints that I understand people that have preferences, and I'm not putting that down, but there are certain things like, we talked about Vinegar Syndrome. The amount of people that have subscribed to Vinegar Syndrome in their, I think this year is their 11th year or 12th year, whatever.
Oh, wow.
There are
Okay.
people that are subscribed knowing what they've released for the last 12 years. They
Yeah.
subscribed in January and now are like, why is Vinegar Syndrome putting out films from Asia? I don't like that. I don't want to read subtitles. Or,
What?
yeah, there's a lot of people that are anti just anything that isn't cheesy slashers. And
Okay.
if that cheesy English language slashers,
Right,
and
right.
if that's the case, you're gonna be let down by a lot of stuff.
Okay. So it almost makes sense then for maybe Vinegar Syndrome to get their partner labels to do the releasing of these films. I'm kind of surprised Connie, is it Canny or Connie, hasn't
Connie, yeah.
done hasn't done more Pink films, because like initially when they came out, I was like, oh hell yeah, they're gonna be the one to do it. But they haven't.
Yeah, I don't think that's truly their mission. I think their mission is for stuff that is, for the most part, never been released on any format, and a lot less like classic Japanese pink, and more like subversive Filipino films that have
Right.
never had proper releases. Which I totally get that. There's a lot of company that do Japanese films. I'm producing 4 Japanese films for another company right this moment, so it's
Oh, sweet.
there's so many companies out there that hit that stuff, and yet hardly anybody does Filipino. So I'm all fine
Mm.
with Connie doing what they've been doing.
Okay. Yeah, I need to watch more of their stuff. I think I only grabbed Cain and Abel so far.
It's a great one.
I love that. Yeah.
Great
I
movie.
mean, that's kind of more in my zone, I think, because it's like
Yeah.
feels a little bit like something Mondo Macabro would put out. Like it's
Yeah.
like trashy, a little sleazy, a little
Yeah.
dark. I like that kind of thing. But are you working on any other Pink films then? Where did you say that, or
I am at this point in time. It's a weird thing because some of these labels work so ahead of time that
right?
I've either already worked on stuff that's not been released, or I see that it's coming up on the schedule and we're going to be doing stuff for it. At this today, I will not work on a Pink film, but I've got like 40 active projects that I'm working on right now. So
Wow. Okay.
it's a lot. I mean, the amount of things, I don't ever really talk about the amount of work because I don't want people to think that I'm hitting too many things, but like we're working with so many of these labels right now. It's kind of crazy. We're all across the board. I mean, we've talked about multiple labels that I think publicly I've not even said that I've done stuff for, that I've done stuff for. It's been a very busy period for sure.
Are you not allowed to talk about it?
I mean, I could like there are certain things like Vinegar Syndrome just released or announced. They haven't technically released it, but yeah, their big release of Dirty Work that they're
Oh
putting out.
yeah, yeah.
That giant Norm Macdonald, Bob Saget film. I did a little bit of help on that release, and
Cool.
I am stoked on it. I've done some help with them on a couple others, but it's stuff that hasn't been announced yet. So those ones I can't say, but there are, I mean, tons of companies that are just across the board. I could gush about all day, just helping them behind the scenes with everything from subtitles to interviews to editing to restoration videos to Deaf Crocodile. One of the big things that I'm super proud of is we get a QR code on a little 3x5 card in all of their releases. And when you scan that, you get transcriptions of the audio commentary, their interviews, and all their visual essays in
Mhm.
case you are hearing impaired or not able to sit
That's
in front of
amazing.
the TV, and you can read them elsewhere. So these releases cost, $32. And for people that are deaf or hard of hearing, a lot of times the only thing that's subtitled is the film. And I because I got 2 kids that are special needs, one of the things that I'm really passionate about is accessibility. I don't want somebody that's deaf or hard of hearing to pay $32 for a deluxe release only to be able to watch the film and maybe read the booklet. So now all of the supplemental features you can access in printed form.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
Wow. And that will be on Pink films as well?
It'll be it's on inflatable sex doll of the wastelands. So
That's
yeah.
awesome, man. Sweet,
Yeah.
sweet. So is there a release that you would say was kind of like your dream film release that you've worked on so far?
Oh man.
Doesn't have to
Uh
be your favorite per se, but just one that you're like, oh my God, I finally got to work on this film.
Probably one that I can't talk about yet, but what I can
Uh,
answer this question with is I'm really proud of what we did on the film Nail Gun Massacre for TerrorVision.
oh, okay.
I came on early with TerrorVision in a way that I never really expected to do, and they basically said, "Nail Gun Massacre is your baby. Do with it what you can." And
Cool.
we recorded an audio commentary for it. I interviewed. I think there's 6 brand new interviews on that disc with everybody from the film that's still with us that I could, and then edited all of the interviews myself. They're all on the disc in a way that I'm genuinely proud of. The film looks beautiful. and that whole disc is like my baby to the world. And it's the funny thing is, it's not a great movie, but it's one of those cheesy slashers that everybody that watches it loves, and has, super quotable lines. There's very cheesy death scenes. There's
Mhm.
films or scenes where people's been shot in the face with a nail gun, and you can see the little fake nail blowing in the wind, and
Nice.
silly things like that. And to be able to interview random bit actors that are in the scene, the movie, for like 4 minutes, and just like find out that they got hired because they were a stripper at the time, and the director wanted a little more boobs, and would be able to
Oh
talk about it.
god.
It's just so much fun. So much
That's
fun. And
awesome.
now, like, the main guy from Nail Gun Massacre still calls me like once every couple months just to chat and hang out. So
That's cool. I
yeah.
mean, I feel like I've seen this in your bio on the website, and or maybe in an interview I came across that you did, that community is such a big thing for you, you know?
Huge. Yeah.
And it seems like it's sort of, a running theme throughout this whole interview we've been doing, of like how much community is important to you,
Yes.
and even bleeds into like your politics in a way of like,
Yeah.
like the people that you have issues with are the ones that are the most exclusive, if that's, yeah,
Yes.
that's the right word. You're all about inclusivity, about community, being able to
Yes.
grow people, invite people in, keep those people coming. So yeah.
And make others feel welcome. That's the other thing is,
Exactly. Yeah.
people that are exclusive to other entities, whether that be, things that we've talked about, or simply just somebody being near them and they'd rather be alone. It's something that you just don't need to be, like, at the end of the day, you don't need to be rude to people. Just kind of be
No.
nice and chill, and make sure that everybody's just fine living their lives.
Hmm. And if you can buy a pink phone.
Or 20.
Or 20. Well, I will get on ordering those because I would like to help this type of very upsetting films come out. But with that being said, we are at 90 minutes now. So if it's okay, I'll do the questionnaire with you and we'll
Sure.
let you get on your way. But clearly, I feel like we've just kind of like scratched the surface of all
I
the
feel
things
like
we can
there's so
talk
much to
about.
talk about. Yeah.
So if you'd like to come back next season,
Absolutely.
I'll definitely have you back on. So
Yeah.
okay, so let's do the questionnaire. You ready?
Yes,
Actually,
sir.
you've already answered one of them, but you'll see. Okay, one is one item you can't live without.
One item that I can't live without is probably my 4K player. I got to be honest. A region-free 4K player allows me to do so much of my work that I would not be able to do what I'm doing right now without it.
I'm jealous because I have a 4K Blu-ray player. Oh no, sorry, I have a 4K Blu-ray player and then a region-free regular Blu-ray player, and I need to get just the one. So
I got
it will
really
happen.
lucky and got one of the Oppos right before they were discontinued, and then modded it myself with the region-free chip, so now it can play
Oh, okay.
anything.
Look at that. Okay, I guess I got a mod. Okay, what was the last great movie you saw in theaters?
Sinners this year blew my mind. I adore that movie, and I cannot wait to watch that probably at least once a year.
Nice. Okay, I haven't seen that yet, and I'm really bummed about that. I really want to see it. Hopefully, it's actually a long weekend in Canada this weekend when we're recording. So hopefully Monday, my wife and I were going to try to go see it.
It is immense.
Yeah, yeah, it looks amazing. Okay, what was the last great concert you went to, which was Foxy Shazam, right?
Foxy Shazam, yeah, definitely the last great one, and I'll even answer the one before that. I was able to
Hmm.
take my oldest kid to his first concert about a year ago, and we went and saw you might remember him, semi-religious post-hardcore screamo band Emery. Uh, I
Okay,
I
okay.
raised him listening to Emery, and he loved going to that show.
Oh, that's awesome. Was there like
Yeah.
a mosh pit and everything,
There
or
was he hung out in the back with me,
yeah?
sat on my shoulders for a lot of it, but he was thrilled to be there.
That's amazing. That's
Yeah.
actually a really cool first concert
Yep.
because most kids, it's well, mine was Sting. What was yours? Was
Tom Petty and the
Tom?
Heartbreakers.
I mean, that's okay. Yours is cool. I think yours is cooler than mine, to be
Sting is
honest.
pretty
But
rad. Let's be
it's
honest.
pretty good. But not as cool as Emery. Let's be
Yeah.
fair. Okay. What was the last great book you read?
I've not finished it yet, but I am thrilled with Sam Deegan's latest book, the
Right.
political warfare book, essentially, in film, 35 millimeter revolution in cinema.
Yeah, it's really good. I'm
Yeah.
really glad I had her on to talk about it. I had only read one chapter at that point. So since then, I kind of just got through the whole thing. I was
Yeah.
sad to honestly finish it. It was such an excellent book.
Yeah.
So,
It's pretty incredible.
okay, next one. For his final meal, John Wayne Gacy picked KFC chicken, shrimp, and strawberries. For your final meal, before being executed, what would you pick?
Fairly boring answer, but I would probably want to make my final meal myself, and I would probably make a super juicy cheeseburger on a wonderful potato bread, just semi-plain burger. Let the meat speak for itself, and then for a giant side with that, being raised in California, I'm a huge fan of carne asada fries. So the
Mm,
mixture of Southern California with like deeply ingrained Mexican culture, carne asada, heavy on the cilantro, heavy on the lime, really great homemade fries, cover it with cheese, a whole bunch of tahini. Yes, please.
okay. And the drink would be
Boring water, probably.
just water?
Just water.
Really?
That's all I drink.
Dude, you're gonna die. Not even like a Dr. Pepper or something? Or
Maybe a diet Dr. Pepper.
have you tried Dr. Pepper Zero?
I don't think so.
You don't have that? You
I don't
guys
know.
have that in the
I,
States.
I drink water primarily. That's
Oh, okay. That's fair. Well, Dr. Pepper Zero, you should try it. It's excellent.
on it.
Okay. Last question that I kind of hate. Can art go too far?
I mean, by definition, sure. It can go too far in many different ways, but I think in lots of situations, art should go too far.
It
And the
should
real
go too far.
thing
Okay.
is that art is something that is meant to push boundaries and to expand people's horizons. And if you're not feeling uncomfortable sometimes, you're not going far enough.
I like that. You're actually the first person I've had on that has said art should go too far,
Yeah.
which just emphasizes how this is such a loaded and ambiguous question. Because I've had so many people be like, "Of course, yeah, art goes too far all the time when this happens and when this happens,"
Yeah.
you know. But you kind of took it a different way, and I like that. I like your interpretation the most so far. So
Yeah,
yeah.
it's something that can challenge every single aspect of your life, change the way that you believe on anything. And if you're not doing something to challenge your beliefs, you're not growing.
Amazing. And I think that makes sense tied into everything we talked about earlier
Yeah,
for
probably.
you because art, it seems like art was always one step ahead of you
Yeah.
in your evolution, where it was like, but maybe look at it like this, but maybe look at it like this.
Yep.
And I mean, that's probably happening for everybody, but for yours, it was very clearly laid out. So
Yeah.
great
Can't wait to
stuff.
see what's around that next corner.
Yeah. Pink films. Okay. Ryan, thank you so much. It was great. It was fantastic talking to you. Honestly,
Thank you, sir.
I think
It's
we
an
got
honor.
along like gangbusters or whatever the phrase is.
Absolutely.
But yeah, I will invite you back and I'll see you again soon and we'll be in touch.
Can't wait. Thank you, sir.
Okay. Enjoy your day. Oh, you can say bye.
Oh, bye.
Okay.